The idea of staying true to the original work can be kind of misleading. If we just stick to the text without really understanding it, then our performance or interpretation is definitely going to flop. So, being faithful to the original work is actually about being loyal to the essence of the art itself, you know? The core of the work. It's like, where does the real spirit of the work come from? It's like this inner perspective, the soul of the piece, you remember? The second lecture is about this whole vibe of the art, and it all comes down to this major thing called the internal vision, right? In Chinese aesthetics, we often use this term, hua jing, which is like, transcending. So, being faithful to the original work is all about being true to what the artwork really gives you, you know? Like, this transcendent feeling, and not just being faithful to the literal words. So, we need to set this statement straight, like, for every 1,000 readers, there are 1,000 versions of Hamlet, and for every 1,000 musicians, there are 1,000 Beethovens. But hey, all these different Beethovens are really just, still Beethoven. You don't want to play Beethoven like it's Mozart, because it's Beethoven. So, the thing is, we shouldn't think that every reader has their own Hamlet. I mean, our performing arts don't really have set rules. Under Kleiber's direction, we get to feel Beethoven's symphony, and under Karajan's direction, we still get that Beethoven vibe, even though they do it differently. But it's all Beethoven, right? That's what I think we should know about performing arts. In the same way, when it comes to this idea of fate, we can feel it in Brahms' music, we can feel it in Beethoven's music, and in Tchaikovsky's last 3 symphonies, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th, it's all about fate. But, you know, the way fate is expressed in Tchaikovsky's music is different from how it's portrayed in Beethoven's and Brahms' music. You can't conduct Tchaikovsky's Fate Symphony the same as you would conduct Beethoven's, that would be way off. So, what we've got to understand is this: for every 1,000 conductors, there are 1,000 versions of Beethoven, but he's still Beethoven, and we'll never truly capture just one version of him, and that's okay. Beethoven's greatness comes from the fact that he's always relevant to our time. The world Beethoven lived in and the world we live in now are totally different. But somehow, Beethoven's music still speaks to us today. How? It's through the conductors of our time that Beethoven lives on. If Beethoven's music only spoke to the concerns of his time, he wouldn't be a timeless musician. Today's awesome conductors bring Beethoven to life for us, and by waving their batons, they help us figure out what's up in our world. We get where an artist's take on a piece comes from. Sure, it's their personality and their emotional vibe, but that's not all it takes to make their conducting a hit. So, what's the secret sauce? It's that they're totally in tune with the times. A top-notch conductor is all about being in sync with their era. They guide us in this day and age to see that piece in a whole new light, and that's what makes them stand out. In the music scene, I've heard a ton and I've seen how things have changed from Furtwängler to Kleiber. Back in the 1950s, Furtwängler, this amazing German conductor, put his own spin on Beethoven, fitting right into the vibe of his time. Then along came Kleiber, and things had shifted, their scenes were different, and that's pretty darn cool. So, I reckon the work of performing artists is all about truth. It's all about getting to the heart of the matter, and it's definitely not just about polishing up conducting skills or art. Nope, not at all. Like I mentioned before, when Carlos Kleiber was conducting the Munich Philharmonic, guess what he told the musicians? He said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to a composer you've never met before. This guy is the real deal, straight from the earth, carrying the scent of the soil and the purest truth with him. You've never heard of him. His name is Bruckner." Well, the musicians were totally stunned. I mean, they had played Bruckner's symphonies a zillion times under Karajan's direction. But here comes Kleiber, saying, I'm introducing you to a composer you don't know. What do you think that means? So, was Kleiber hinting that his conducting skills were better than Karajan's? Or was he telling them, you've never met this conductor? You've never tapped into his way of thinking. He's like a farmer, coming from the land, bringing the earthy scent and the purest truth with him. When it comes to the performing arts, what's the deal? They're all about uncovering the truth, and they're a whole other level of creative expression. So, I gave this talk at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music, all about the deep stuff in music performance. And here's how I tied it all together. The audience was a bunch of grad students, and let me tell you, they were totally serious about their studies in conducting. They were all about chasing after the truth. Now, can you bring Bruckner and Mozart into the here and now? Can you take on the challenges of today, whether you're conducting or performing? That's what it's all about. This is your thing, your calling. It's not just about arguing over techniques to become a better conductor. It's more than that. You may mess up a whole bunch of notes or even tweak parts of a piece, and that you're not being true to the original work. Lipatti, this amazing Romanian piano player, dropped this wisdom in his final lecture notes. He used to school his students and left behind these words: only the music scholars wouldn't change a single thing in Mozart's scores, even if there were mistakes. They just want to serve up Mozart as is. If we only approach a historical masterpiece as a scholar, that's not good enough. Instead of just being technical, we've got to love it. That's the real deal right there. What a right-on statement. We're just talking about this one piece from way back when, and sure, we'll show it some respect, maybe treat it like it's an artifact. But we don't have to respect a masterpiece, we've gotta love it forever. What's it really mean to love it? It's about bringing it into the now, tapping into the vibe of our people today. This is the kind of lesson that needs to be dished out to music students at academies, and that's the kind of vibe I went in with, you feel me? I might not know the first thing about music from a pro angle, but I told them that music is all about the people, for regular folks like us to vibe with. When you're about to bust out some Beethoven, you gotta love it, not just follow the score like a robot. So, there's this legendary Italian conductor, Toscanini, who did some crazy stuff with the musical scores. He made changes that others wouldn't even think of touching, but he just went for it. Now, when we're talking about performing arts, basically, we're diving into the whole creativity thing when it comes to interpreting a piece, right? It's like we're getting into the nitty-gritty. That's where we're at now, in our 5th lecture. Why do I say that? Well, it's all about accepting what's been created. See, a work starts off as something to be accepted, and then it becomes something that creates an impact. So, when we're discussing creativity in the performing arts, we're really discussing how we accept the work. So, how do we accept a work? Sometimes we get all worked up about not understanding sculptures or paintings, right? Then, we go to an art exhibition. The artworks there are already super famous, but when we check them out, we just can't wrap our heads around them, you know what I mean? We're left scratching our heads. So, who do we wish was with us? We're hoping for some art school pros, preferably someone who can walk us through the exhibition, so we can understand and appreciate these works. If we approach the acceptance of a work in this way, we're starting off on the wrong foot. You're looking at a painting, but it doesn't quite grab you, right? Then, along comes an expert, me for example, who tells you all about why this painting is incredible, giving you 5 solid reasons. You hear them out, and they sound convincing, don't they? But does it make the painting beautiful to you? Nope, probably not. Reason being, you can't just logic and theory your way into feeling a piece of art. Let's break it down. There are basically 2 types of ways we experience art. One is more of a theoretical thing, where you analyze and dissect, and the other is the real deal, where you're really feeling the art. When it comes to accepting a work, it's not about overthinking or understanding its themes or social impact. It's not about whether it's a realistic piece or a romantic one. What really matters is immersing yourself in the world the artist created and feeling something deep about it. Only then can you truly have that wow moment with a piece of art. So, right now, we're talking about what makes the aesthetic experience stand out among all the other experiences in our lives. And the big thing to note about it is that it's not about being practical or useful. Now, to get a little deeper into this, the American philosopher Dewey wrote a book called Art as Experience. In this book, he said something about the aesthetic experience that really sticks. When an experience is the ultimate one, with no other experiences to seek, it always carries the qualities of an aesthetic experience. The whole point of art is to create the kind of experience. When we call an experience ultimate, what exactly do we mean by that? Well, it means that this experience isn't just a stepping stone to another experience, it's the end goal in itself. When we're fully immersed in this kind of experience, we're not looking for anything else. And if it's really this kind of experience, it's gotta have that really special aesthetic quality. We have all sorts of experiences, like understanding things and experiencing moral dilemmas. But those are different from the aesthetic experience. See, understanding things and dealing with moral stuff, those aren't the end goal in themselves. They're more like stepping stones to other things. Like, when we're interested in understanding something, it's because once we understand it, we can use it to make life easier. So, understanding isn't the ultimate thing. And our moral experiences help us build a society that makes sense, but they're not the final thing. But the aesthetic experience? That's the big finish. It's not leading us to another experience, it's the end game in itself. And any experience like that definitely has to have a special aesthetic vibe. So, what's the bottom line here? It's all about being, not all about usefulness. So, let's say you pick up Dream of the Red Chamber because you've heard of it before. But did you know, in old Chinese society, it's like an encyclopedia? Yeah, it's not just a story, it's packed with info about politics, economics, architecture, fashion, medicine, and all the social stuff of the time. But here's the thing, diving into Dream this way isn't really all about the aesthetic experience. You're not creating that deep, emotional connection with the literature, you're more like on an info hunt. So, what do we really get from Dream of the Red Chamber? It gives us a peek into the decline of ancient Chinese society. That's pretty valuable in terms of knowledge, but that's not the same as its artistic value. When we read it like this, we're not really having that special literary experience. See, forming a true literary bond with a work means creating what? An aesthetic experience. It's like the ultimate form of connection, that's how we really judge it. Think about your literature class in high school. Do the teachers help you develop that deep literary connection with the books they're teaching? It's an important question. We've got to recognize that any truly artistic work, whether it's a book, a song, a sculpture, or a painting, creates what? A surreal world. Now, if you approach Dream of the Red Chamber as a window into the real history, like many readology scholars do, you're looking for knowledge value. You're not really seeing it as this mystical, otherworldly creation. But here's the deal, every artistic work is like a window into a surreal world. Sure, it might reflect the real world, but it goes beyond it. When we step into this kind of surreal world, that's when we're really experiencing the art. And in that experience, we're not looking for anything practical, not even deeper understanding. It's like how historians' official accounts won't give you the full picture of history, right? So, if we read a novel to fill in the gaps left by history books, we're still using it for practical reasons. That's where the non-utilitarian nature of an aesthetic experience comes in. It's something we need to keep in mind right from the start.